Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Paul's Sports Takes. Like I said in my last video, this weekend was the Florida Relays hosted here in Gainesville. I had the opportunity to be down on the track for this meet and interview some of the fastest people in the world, people that I've been looking up to for a very long time, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. Just an absolutely insane 2 days. So in this video, we're going to talk through the meet a little bit, highlight some of the best performances on the high school, collegiate, and professional levels. And I'm also going to be throwing in some fun clips from the interviews that I got. That being said, let's get into it. All right, we're going to start with the field events on Friday. And the first one we're going to talk about is for me, as a University of Florida student who really likes the throws, this was definitely one of the highlights of the meet for me. In the women's discus invite, Alida Van Dalen of the Netherlands and of the University of Florida, she threw an almost 2 meter personal best of 61.84 to take the win over a very strong field, which also saw Veronica Fraley of Vanderbilt. She threw 60.07 to move to number 3 in the NCAA. But that 61.84 for Van Dalen is, like I said, nearly a 2 meter personal best, her first time over the 60 meter barrier. And she also had another throw in the competition that was 60.45, I think. So she broke 60 twice in the same competition in her first time ever breaking 60, so that's huge. As I was watching her warm up Friday afternoon, I was getting very excited because I noticed that she was throwing with a reverse now, which is something that she was not doing last year. And so I was like, okay, if she's really unlocking that full potential now, it's going to be incredible to see what she's going to be able to do. And immediately, right off the bat, first meet debuting her throwing with the reverse, she throws almost 62 meters. I was able to speak with her a little bit after the meet, and this is just kind of the meet in her words.
Oh, the meet was it was really good. I changed my technique, so I was really like looking for rhythm in that, and to have it like in the first meet is I'm really pleased about that. I'm really happy, and I'm so happy that the sun is out too. So yeah, especially at the home crowd, it's great.
When you think about how long Van Dalen's season is going to be, she's most likely going to be going to the Olympics for discus. She could be going for shot put as well. She said that is definitely a goal of hers to make the Olympics as the double, which she is one of very few athletes in the entire world that actually has the capability to do that. But thinking about how long her season is going to be and the fact that with her first meet debuting this new technique, she improved by this much. It's, like I said, it's incredibly exciting to think about where she'll be by August or September this year. In the men's hammer throw, I got to see one of the athletes that coming into the meet I was the most excited to watch, and that was Kenny Akeji of Harvard, who is the reigning NCAA champion in the hammer throw from 2023, and he also won the NCAA championship in the weight throw indoors just a little less than a month ago. And so he opened up his season outdoors in the hammer with 72.94, which is his best season opener ever. But the reason why I was so excited to see Kenny Akeji throw is because at this same meet, at Florida Relays in 2023, he threw like a 3 meter personal best. And it was just so much fun to watch him because I was in the stands last year and I was completely on the other side of the track from where the hammer throwing was. But you could just hear him and you could feel his excitement coming like probably 60 or 70 meters all the way across the track every single time he threw. And it was just so cool. And it really made me a fan of his. And it's been really awesome to see him kind of progress since that meet. So I talked to him a little bit about how it felt being back in this place where he really had that breakout now a year removed with all the growth he's seen.
It was really good. I mean, coming in, I was like, oh yeah, this was like in the hammer, I feel like 70 meters is like breaking past that is like, oh, that's a big deal. And this was the meet I did it last year. So obviously I knew the energy is always good at Florida Relays. The facilities are amazing and, everything's set up for you to throw far. I think maybe it was a bit to my disadvantage this year because I was trying a bit too hard to find that distance when really you just let it happen and it comes. But I can't complain, it's a decently consistent meet and for this time of year I'm in a good spot. Sets me up well to, go into the postseason.
The collegiate long jump competitions gave us some of the best marks in the NCAA in both men's and women's. On the women's side, Tiona Tobias of Iowa jumped out to 6 meters 51, which is now the third best mark in the NCAA. Then you had Ashara Collins of UCF jump out to 6:45, which is the sixth best mark in the NCAA. And then on the men's side, you had a duo from UF and Malcolm Clemens and Caleb Foster go 8 meters and 7 meters 84, respectively. Clemens, with his 8-meter jump, is now leading the NCAA, and then Foster is in the NCAA 4th position. Finally, for the field events on Friday, we had Dontavius Hill, formerly of Auburn, now competing in his first year as a professional. He won the men's high jump invitational. His final mark was 220, but he passed at 223 to go for a new PB at 226. He was very close to that. I'm a big fan of Dontavius Hills because obviously, A, Auburn, War Eagle, and B, I remember at the FSU relays last year, that's where he jumped his PB currently at 224. And it was another situation with Kenny Akeji where I think it was a third attempt clearance for him. So it was like this was the last jump of the competition, pretty much no matter what. And he clears 224, and he was just so excited. And it was another situation, just like I described with Kenny Akeji, where you could feel that even from the stands. That was just another situation where I saw that, and I was like, this guy is awesome. And he also has a really impressive social media following. I think he has like over 150,000 followers on Instagram, and he followed me back at Paul's Sports Take. So Dontavius Hill is a certified cool guy. I was able to talk with him after the competition about how he felt about his last attempt at 226. That last attempt was really, really close.
That was probably one of my best attempts at that height. I would say I'm very close. I'm going to get that bar potentially next meet, and I've been feeling it for the past 3 weeks, and that was the one, but I'm going to get it next week.
Moving to the track on Friday, we saw a lot of high schoolers running on Friday. Really, the only high school events on Saturday on the track were relay races, which were phenomenal, don't get me wrong. But most of the individual events were on Friday, and one of the first individual events was the boys 100-meter dash. I'm so sad that I missed this because I had an exam that morning. So I wasn't able to watch this, but Christian Miller of Creekside, who was the USA U20 national champion last year on the 100-meter and the 200, he ran 10:14 with a slightly above legal wind. It was plus 2.2, so just barely over that legal limit. But all conditions, that's the fastest time in the country this year for a high schooler. It's his second fastest all conditions time ever, so he's in really good shape at the beginning of this season. And his fastest time ever in the 100 was 10:06, and he ran that at the USA U20 championships last year, so pretty far along into the summer. So him running this time pretty early on in his outdoor season bodes very well for what he's going to be able to do. He's also already equaled his 200-meter PB from his wind legal 200-meter PB from last year at 20:51. So he is just in great shape. And this 10:14 run that I unfortunately missed is a really good sign of things to come. In the boys 800 meters, we saw Riley Smith of Buchholz, which for those of you that don't know is a high school in Gainesville. And Riley Smith is really living the dream. He's a Gainesville kid going to high school in Gainesville. He's committed to UF next year. And he currently has the national high school lead in the 3200. And now on Friday morning, he ran 1 minute 50.96 seconds for the third fastest time in the country in the 800. So that's just really good range from him. And he said, I interviewed him after, and he said that the 800 is his worst event right now. But him still having this third fastest time in the country in his worst event is a pretty frightening thought for the rest of the distance runners in the country. The high school open 400-meter races were incredible. We saw national leads in both the girls and the boys side. On the girls' side, it was Olivia Williams of Montverde who ran 52:30. And then on the boys' side, it was Quincy Wilson of the Bullis School up in Maryland. And I had been looking at the entries, like in the couple days leading up to the meet, and he was slated to run in the 4x4 and the 4x2, but he was not slated to run in the open 4. And then, like, literally the night before, I checked the official heat sheets, and he's in this 400-meter heat with also, so he hadn't ran, this was his outdoor opener, but he was in this 400-meter heat with 4 guys that were like the US number 2 at the time, number 4, like number 10 and number 13. So it was just an insanely stacked field. And then you slot in, oh yeah, Quincy Wilson, who just set the national high school record indoors as a sophomore. He ran some of the fastest time we've ever seen, like U18 ever, as a freshman last year. He turned 16 in January. And he comes out here and he runs 45:19. That time was the fastest in the country so far by a high schooler. It won this meet by like almost a second and a half. It's the fastest time in the country by over a second. He's the second fastest sophomore ever. He is the 8th fastest high school ever, tied with future world champion Michael Norman. Not a big deal. He's faster than Usain Bolt was at this age. It was just so incredible to see live, and this kid is just ridiculous. And that 45:19 held up over the next day and a half of competition throughout the collegiate field and the men's field, and stayed as the fastest open 400-meter time of the meet, which is absurd. And it becomes a little bit more insane when I was talking with Quincy after me, and he said this.
I took a week break, a week and a half break. I had to get ready because, so it's going to be a long outdoor season, so I had to give my body some rest. I know I have Florida relays, and, I was only supposed to run some relays, but, I came out here and just I wanted to do something and execute, and, my plans was changed last minute. I just came out here and gave my best.
So combining together the fact that he had taken a little bit of a break in training, and with the fact that he also didn't realize he was going to be running in the open four until pretty much the day before, including a flight down from Maryland, and he still runs 45:19, which is in the 10 fastest times in the world this year, regardless of age group. This kid is absurd. And I don't want to say it's a guarantee, but it feels like a very strong possibility. At a minimum, he will be in the relay pool in Paris this year, which is ridiculous. One final note on this high school boys 400 race is Tywin Cox of Miami Northwestern. He finished second to Quincy. He ran 46:42, and that is the 3rd fastest time in the country this year. And he is still well over a second behind Quincy in the same race. Like, that's just, it's got to feel good to be the U.S. number 3, but also running 46:4 and losing by over a second has got to be like, man, that's got to be tough on some level. All right, moving up to the collegiate races. We'll start with the women's 200. And in this one, we saw Jamisha Ford of South Carolina continue her ridiculously dominant indoor season, where she ran the 3 fastest times ever seen by a freshman in the indoor 200. She opens up her outdoor season with a national lead in the 200 at 22:37. She also anchored South Carolina's 4x1 team to the 3rd fastest time in the country, and their 4x4 team to an NCAA lead. So just a ridiculous weekend from her. But with what we saw in the indoor season, it's kind of what we've come to expect from Jamisha Ford. And then in the same race, we also saw the 2nd and 3rd fastest time in the NCAA so far this year by her teammate, Jayla Jamison of South Carolina, ran 22:58. And then Joyasia Smith of Charlotte ran 22:91 for the 3rd fastest time in the NCAA so far. On the men's side, we saw Shekna Traore of Penn State, who was the runner-up indoors in the 200. He ran 20:23 to take the NCAA lead. So we saw the fastest NCAA time in the country for men's and women's, like 20 minutes apart from each other. Florida Relays is amazing. And Shekna Traore, I think, is really going to be an interesting athlete to watch as the season progresses because he's from Cote d'Ivoire. So, first of all, he's most likely going to the Olympics as long as he hits the standard because they don't really have any sort of it's not as competitive of a trials process as the U.S. is. And then also, I spoke to him a little bit about kind of the rise that African sprinting has been on over the last couple years. Obviously, it kind of started out with Connie Simbine and Ferdinand Omanyala, but obviously, let's see, like Tebogo is one of the premier names in sprinting right now. So I just kind of asked him how he sees himself fitting in there.
Africa's on the rise, man. We have some fantastic athletes just across the board, and I think just me being included, I think it's great. I think it's a great atmosphere, and I think seeing those African guys do it from back home kind of just makes me feel like, all right, if they could do it, so could I. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like it's great having those guys. Hope to be able to like race one of those guys as well, especially Tebogo. He's a great 200 runner, so I'd love to see how I kind of fare against him.
In the men's 200, we also saw Nick Harbor of South Carolina run 20:38, which isn't like a ridiculously fast time. But Nick Harbor is 6'5", 240. A man that large who also is like a 5-star wide receiver. He was when he was in high school. Now he barely played for South Carolina, and their fans were very mad about that, apparently. But the fact that he's moving that fast is ridiculous. And like I walked by him like underneath the stands on Saturday, and I like once he passed me, I was just laughing to myself because he is so massive, and it does not make any sense how he can run 20:38 as his opener. It's not fair. For the final track event we're going to talk about on Friday, we're going to go to the men's 1500 collegiate invite, where the winner was not a collegian. It was Marco Arop of Canada, the reigning 2023 world champion in the 800. In this race, Arop ran 3:40.81, which isn't a ridiculously fast time. He ran faster at Florida Relays last year. I think he ran 3:38, but he still felt pretty good about it, and he's coming off of a really strong indoor season where he didn't compete at the World Championships, but he ran 1:800 in like late January, I want to say it was, and I believe that ended up still in around the top 15 fastest times in the world. And then in Boston, he ran the second fastest indoor 1,000 meters ever. So I just talked to him a little bit about how he feels that fitness indoors is translating outdoors so far.
It's helping a lot. I think having the confidence that I can run that faster, makes the 1500 seem a lot easier. And I know it's definitely going to help when I open up in the 800.
Moving on to Saturday, we're going to start with the high school boys triple jump. And in this competition, we saw Winter Haven senior Jaden Lippett jump out to a mark of 15.70 meters. This represented a 1.27 meter win, which is insane. It's the second best mark in the country behind, it was national lead for a couple hours, and then someone at Texas Relays, which was happening at the same time, jumped over 16 meters, which is insane for a high schooler. It's one of the farthest jumps in high school history. So he had the national lead for a couple hours, but he's still second in the country, which is not bad at all. He is also a University of Florida commit, so that is awesome to see. Go Gators. And his mark of 15.7 meters is, like I said, he won by well over a meter, which is already ridiculous. But he would have placed sixth in an incredibly stacked men's field, which we'll get more into in a little bit, so you'll see why that's so impressive. But still, regardless of the quality, a high schooler that theoretically would have placed sixth in a collegiate field is absurd, and it's going to be very interesting to see what the rest of Lippett's season looks like. The men's collegiate discus invite was a wonderful competition. We saw 3 men go over 60 meters, led by Milton Ingraham of Miami at 60.99 meters. And I was able to catch up with Milton after the meet, and I talked to him about how when you have a competition where 3 men go over 60 meters, and he was the final one to go over 60 meters, Desmond Coleman of Liberty threw 60.53 in, I believe, the second round. In the third round, it was Kai Chang of Florida throwing 60.83. And then I believe it was in his fourth round throw that Ingraham broke 60 and threw 60.99 to end up taking the win. So I just asked him about how, when you're in a competition like that, how does it elevate his performance to another level?
I mean, I knew who these guys were coming in. I knew it was going to be a stacked field. I just wanted to compete with them. I wanted everybody to have a great meet, compete. My only goal, again, was to break the school record. I happened to win it, so I'm appreciative.
Over in the shot put circle for the men's competition, we saw the NCAA 2 and 3 marks, both by University of South Carolina throwers. Second in the country right now goes to CJ Licata, who threw 20 meters even to hit that barrier for the first time in his career. And he's a glider, which you really don't see a lot on the men's side anymore. So the fact that we have another 20-meter glider in college is a pretty exciting and interesting prospect. And then right behind him was his teammate Dylan Targart, who threw 19.93 to, like I said, take that third mark in the NCAA right now. Finally, in the field events, we have that men's triple jump competition I talked about earlier. The winner of this was Donald Scott, who's a professional. He jumped 17 meters even, and at the time, he was the first man in the world to break 17 meters outdoors this year. But then, kind of in the same situation as Jaden Lippett, a few hours later, 2 athletes at Texas Relays jumped over 17 meters, and they went, I want to say 17:09 and 17:02. So he's third on the world outdoor list, but that's still a very good spot for him to be this early in the season. The runner-up was Sean Dixon Bodie of the University of Florida. He jumped 16.68 with a slightly illegal tailwind of plus 2.1 meters per second, but that is still technically the farthest mark in the NCAA this year, but it is not technically a legal mark. And then in third place was Christian Taylor, who is, the two-time Olympic champion, four-time world champion. And he's been struggling the last couple of years coming back from an Achilles injury. But his mark this weekend of 16:56 was a nearly 30-centimeter improvement from his opener last week at the FSU relays. And he posted on Instagram the morning before that this was going to be his final Florida relays appearance, which is very significant because he competed at UF collegiately. He said he's been coming to Florida relays for 15 years. And after the meet, I was lucky enough to be able to catch up with him and just kind of talk to him about what competing at this meet at Presley Stadium as a whole means to him.
This was my last Florida relays, and I've ran so many 400s here. Nerves were, I just remember just being so sick because so nervous to run the 400, run these 4x4s. Something I look back and reflect on, and just so grateful to run with. I mean, people like Tony McQuaid, right, running the 100 here today. But now it's my last games, it's my last season. I just want to go out with a bang, and that's just really just being patient and trusting that that jump is still in me.
All right, I did lie to you guys a little bit earlier. That was not technically my final field event. I ran into Anna Hall over the weekend, who is not competing right now because she's still recovering from a little knee surgery she had in January. She unfortunately had to miss World Indoors, but she's on the recovery path. And so I was able to catch up with her a little bit about what that recovery has looked like for her and if she has a schedule for getting her outdoor season underway.
PT and recovery and everything has been going smoothly. We're kind of on pace on that little schedule that we built for ourselves in coming back. So yeah, I feel optimistic about it. Obviously, it wasn't how I wanted to start an Olympic year, and I was super bummed to miss World Indoors. I'd had that written on my mirror for so long, and I was ready to do it, but I don't know, it's just what happened. And now outdoors, I'm looking to probably open up in 2 weeks here at Tom Jones, which I'm super excited about. It'll be kind of just a rust buster, knock the wheels off. I know coming back from my foot before, the first meet back after surgery is never that fun, but you just kind of have to do it and get back out there. So I'm happy that I'll be able to do that early in the year and have a lot of time before trials.
The track events on Saturday got started off with 2 wins and 2 U.S. number 2 times by the boys and girls 4x200 meter teams from Miami Northwestern. The boys won their race in a minute 23:75. The girls won in a minute 35:91. Like I said, U.S. number 2 times for both of them, so good for them. Then as we move to the women's collegiate 100-meter hurdles, we saw Grace Stark of the University of Florida go Gators. She ran 12:78 in the heats, and then in the finals, she ran 12:70. So that 12:78 in the prelims was the NCAA lead, was the world lead, and then she runs faster in the finals to reset her own NCAA and world lead. That also gives her the qualifying standard for Paris, so just a massive run for her. I believe she said it's her fastest opener ever, and it's just very encouraging things to see from her after a pretty solid indoor season. And then in the finals, we also saw Renaya Jones of UCF run 12:78 to equal the old world lead, and she's now number 2 in the NCAA and number 2 in the world. The men's Olympic development 4x1 was, by all means, one of the highlights of the meet. You had the Gainesville elite team of Grant Holloway handing off to PJ Austin, handing off to Ariane Knighton, handing off to Joseph Fahnbulleh, run 37:67, which is one of the fastest times ever by a non-national team, because Fahnbulleh does represent Liberia, so they aren't going to go in the record books necessarily. But it is one of the fastest times ever by a non-national team, and it is, according to World Athletics top lists, it is the fastest 4x1 ever run before the month of May. So putting together that time, and obviously they're also in the same training group, and team chemistry and getting really good handoffs is a very important thing in the 4x1. So that obviously helped them a little bit, but still, you can't run 37:67 if you're not in great shape. And Grant is really the only one out of the 4 of them that had a significant indoor season. So it's really good to see this early in the season they're already in this great of shape. After the race, I got a chance to interview them. And, we talked about the race a little bit. That was all fine. And then I was maybe looking for a little bit of a hot take because I asked Grant, Ariane, and PJ about how they feel about how this race sets them up for the relays in Paris. Because obviously Noah Lyles getting selected for the 4x4 caused a lot of hubbub in the USATF community, including Grant Holloway being very vocal about it in a comment section. And so I asked them about how it feels, And you know what? I'll let Grant Holloway and Joseph Fahnbulleh speak for themselves here.
Hey, look, I'm not American. I can say whatever I want, right? If he's on there, or relax on there. Look, hey, Team USA was here. They obviously saw what we just ran, so we're gonna see what happens. Obviously, Ariane and PJ are the young ones. Obviously,
no politics.
Ariane and PJ are the young ones, so they have a chance to, put themselves in history books. But it's just a start. We leave the politics out of it. We just stay ready, so we don't gotta get ready.
We're just having fun out here, man, at our home track.
If I had to pick out really like a single highlight from this race, Ariane Knighton's third leg on that back turn was remarkable. The way he just ate up the track was really incredible, but we were a bit robbed of a phenomenal finish because on the team that was in the lane right next to them, the anchor for that team was Noah Lyles. And it was really unfortunate because they messed up the handoff. Noah Lyles, and I don't know who was on the third leg on his team, but him and Noah Lyles had a little bit of miscommunication, messed up the handoff. And it stinks because that's the second year in a row that in a 4x1 at the Florida Relays, Noah Lyles has messed up a handoff on the anchor leg. Last year, funnily enough, it was with his brother Josephus that they messed up the handoff. Now, it did look like Gainesville Elite was a little bit ahead coming into the final straightaway, but seeing Noah Lyles try and run down Joseph Fahnbulleh, two men who have two of the absolute fastest top speeds in the world, would have been amazing. And it is really unfortunate that we were robbed of that. Moving up to the collegiate women's 800 now. Just like in the 200, we saw the three fastest times in the NCAA so far happen in the same race. And this 800, it was Victoria Bosong of Harvard ran 2:92 for the fastest time in the country so far. Haley Kitching of Penn State ran 2:01.17. And then Judy Koskei of South Carolina ran 2:01.66 for the second and third fastest times. Over in the men's race, we saw Parvej Khan of the University of Florida Go Gators. He ran 1:46.12 for the third fastest time in the country so far, and he was the top collegiate finisher. He finished runner-up in the race to Josh Hoey, who was a professional. But it's really encouraging to see that from him. And I spoke with him a little bit after the race, and he said he is planning on focusing on the 1500, like how he was focusing on the mile indoors. But seeing him put together a race like this in the shorter distances is very promising for what he'll be able to do when he does open up in the 15. Because on the indoor season in the mile, obviously his kick was kind of what took the nation by storm. And I was watching him in this 800, and it really looked like he was leaving the kick a little bit too long. He didn't start it until like in between the 250 and 200 meter mark, it looked like. And he started out in like 7th, and he just ran down everyone. And it looked like they were like running through quicksand, and he was just gliding along the track. And he ends up finishing second, like I said, to Josh Hoey. And it's just a really great start to the season for Parvej Khan outdoors. In the Olympic development men's 400 meters, one of those guys that ended up finishing behind Quincy Wilson for the meet as a whole was none other than Alison Dos Santos, who was the 2022 world champion of the 400 meter hurdles and the third fastest man ever. He ran 45:25 to be the winner in the Olympic development races, and he also later ran a leg on the 4x4 that he felt pretty good about. After the race, I had the chance to talk with him, and I asked him about the men's 400 meter hurdles final in Tokyo in 2021. Because that race is one of the greatest races in track and field history, bar none. But that's really the only time we've ever seen him, Rai Benjamin, and Karsten Warholm completely healthy. And now we have Alison Dos Santos opening up his outdoor season with a pretty solid mark in the flat 4. Karsten Warholm obviously took world indoor silver in the flat 4. And then Rai Benjamin is just Rai Benjamin, so he'll probably open his season with the fastest 400 we'll see all year by an American, and then only run the 400 hurdles up until the 4x4 in Paris. But it's going to be incredibly exciting to hopefully, all of my fingers crossed, see all of them fully healthy in a 400 meter hurdles final in Paris this year. And so I was able to ask Alison about that and just kind of how he looks back on that race and how that gets him pumped up for the potential of it happening again.
I'm excited to see like everyone healthy. That's a good point, because we always have like someone that got injured or something, but everyone healthy is amazing. You can just like produce something really, really nice, just produce like amazing times, and how can I say, just give a really good show for everyone to watch.
In the men's collegiate 100 meters, we saw Favor Esche of Auburn run 9:99 to become, just by 100th of a second, the first man in the world this year to break the 10-second meter barrier. He is still the only man in the world this year to have done so with legal wind. And I was able to catch up with him after the race and ask him how he feels about being that first man under 10 this year.
I feel good. I feel amazing. Like I came to this meet. To just execute. And 9:99. This is my fastest season opener ever. I feel good. I give thanks to God. I mean, I'm going to say, we from Africa, we build different. We got some good food. Like we got some food, some some jollof rice. Like when you eat those food, like you're gonna feel good. So yes, I'm like happy for Mayala, Tebogo, and all of us, including myself. This year, we're putting ourselves on the map.
Moving back to the high school ranks for their final two events of the meet, we had the boys and girls 4x400 meter relays. The Bullis School won both of these relays. The boys event was a little bit less ceremonious than their win in the girls race. Quincy Wilson was their anchor for this relay, and he split 45-42, which was nearly 2 seconds faster than any other leg by any other runner in this race. At the anchor leg handoff, Bullis and Miami Northwestern were pretty much neck and neck. Bullis did have a slight lead, but going into this final leg, you had Quincy Wilson, the fastest boy in the country, running against Taiwan Cox, who's now the third fastest boy in the country. And like I said, Quincy ran over 2 seconds faster than Taiwan Cox did and took this win very comfortably. I mean, if he was being pressured, he probably could have ran a split closer to 45 flat, but he just didn't really need to. But yeah, Quincy Wilson is just ridiculous. But on this day, at least, he was not as ridiculous as the Bullis girls 4x4, who broke Long Beach Poly's 20-year-old high school national record. They ran 3:35.23. Whew, that is moving, obviously, because they set a national record. And really kind of the highlight of this was Morgan Rothwell, who's their anchor. She actually got the baton in second and then just unleashed a devastating final 400 on the field. I caught up with them a little bit after the race, and I asked Rothwell what was going through her mind on this final leg.
So when I got the stick, the only thing I was thinking about was my teammates. I knew that they were depending on me. And I knew that my coach had trusted me to put me anchor, so I just knew what I had to do. Get in the fight, get in the race when I knew it was best. I wanted to take it and just bring it home.
In the men's Olympic development 4x4, there weren't really any crazy times ran. The winning time was slower than the winning time in the collegiate race, happening about 20 minutes after. But it's worth noting, just because of who was running in this race. In this race, you saw Noah Williams, Jareem Richards, Allison Dos Santos, Marco Arap, Ja'Cory Patterson, Stephen Gardner, Arion Knighton, Ryan Willey, and Wade Van Niekerk. Yeah, Wade Van Niekerk, 400-meter world record holder at 43:03, significantly faster than anyone else in world history, was running in this 4x4. And I didn't even know he was at the meet until they were lining up in the blocks. And I'm like, oh my God, that's Wade Van Niekerk standing 30 feet away from me. So I went and I took a bunch of pictures of him, and I was probably bothering him as he was trying to get in the blocks, but I was like, you're Wade Van Niekerk, so this is insane. I don't really remember watching his 43:03 live, but I to this day, that is I almost cry every time I watch that race, and I don't know why, but it gets me so emotional for literally no reason. And so seeing Wade Van Niekerk there on that track and him running that opening leg, I got so excited. And like I said, none of the times were crazy fast. It was most of these people's season openers. But still, just seeing that collection of talent in a 4x4 from all across the world. I mean, you had Canada, South Africa, the Bahamas, Trinidad and Tobago represented. It was so cool, and it is such a great example of why track and field is the best. And finally, wrapping the whole meetup with the collegiate 4x4s. Like I already mentioned, Jamisha Ford anchored South Carolina women to the NCAA lead in the women's 4x4. In the men's 4x4, we saw the University of Florida Go Gators run 3:01:51, which I believe is the third fastest time in the country this year. And, it's not like a super remarkable time, but really I just wanted to talk about it just so I could put this video in here. And now listen, I am not the most school-spirited person. In fact, in pretty much every sport other than track, I like Auburn more than UF. But man, UF winning that 4x4 after how insane the last 2 days had been, and then hearing that it's great to be a Florida Gator chant from the entire team in the stands, it gave me chills like nothing has ever given me chills before. It was beautiful, and it was such a perfect way to cap off, like I said, an absolutely insane 2 days of track and field. All right, well, that is all for Florida Relays 2024. I thought I was somehow going to be able to keep this video kind of short, but I should have known that talking about the most insane 2 days of my life would have ended up being a longer video. But I really don't care because this meet was insane and deserved every ounce of yapping that I gave it. I was putting in some interview clips in this video. Full-length interviews can be found on Sidious Mag's YouTube channel and on my Instagram at Paul Sports Takes. I am potentially, theoretically, hopefully, going to be doing kind of the same thing at the Tom Jones Invitational in 2 weeks. So definitely make sure you're following at Paul Sports Takes on Instagram for that content. And then keep up with Sidious Mag as well. I've also, like I said, last video, I've been posting some articles on Sidious Mag. I had a meet recap article with a lot of the same stuff I talked about here that came out Monday morning. So yeah, it's a pretty crazy time. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on right now for me. And this meet has me so incredibly excited for the rest of the outdoor season. Florida is also hosting the SEC Championships. I'm pretty sure I said that in another video, but Florida is hosting the SEC Outdoor Championships, and I'm going to lose my mind. I'm probably going to lose my mind in a week and a half at Tom Jones, too. It's just track and field is, as I've said several times before, the best sport in the world, and there is literally nothing like it. But for now, that is all for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please follow the Instagram at Paul Sports Takes, and I will see you guys next time.